I sat down and started to get off. He couldn't resist. Hello, welcome to the channel. Today's story is about Clara, who welcomes her cousin Lucas into her home in the city of Vermont. He sought her help and she became his intimate guide, a first-rate mentor. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell so you don't miss any videos, and share with friends who love stories full of intensity and mystery. Let's get started. Hey, this is Clara. I'm 23 years old. I have golden hair and an attitude that many would label as innovative. I hate living in conformity, you know? Vermont, with its peculiar charm and autumn climate, is where I live with my mother. Here everything seems serene, but my existence is not always so peaceful. I work as a real estate consultant. I'm always meeting new people and I love diving into the unknown. I think that defines me well. A combination of curiosity and audacity. Recently, my routine was shaken up with the arrival of my cousin Lucas. He is 20 years old, the son of my mother's sister, and he has come to spend the holidays with us for the first time. Lucas is the kind of reserved guy, with a kind of pure aura that charms. He is quick-witted and funny, but he is clearly still finding his feet. When he arrived, I noticed that there was something unique about him. A fragility that caught my attention. He seemed to be amazed by everything about Vermont. The hills, the weather, even our daily lives. But deep down, I sensed that his visit was not just out of curiosity about the place. There was an unspoken weight that was visible in his hesitant gaze during our conversations. I knew that this time together would be different. I had no idea how much our lives would change during this vacation. The first few days with Lucas were filled with conversation and laughter. He seemed enchanted by everything, from the scent of the trees in the woods to the hot chocolate we enjoyed as the sun set. We talked a lot, and gradually he began to open up. One night, as we sat on the porch, the stars shining brightly in the sky, Lucas revealed something that surprised me. With an uncertain look, he murmured almost in secret, "Clara, I've never been involved with anyone. I've never had a real experience with a woman." I was speechless for a moment, but then I smiled, not because I found it funny, but because I felt the truth and sensitivity of him. It was as if he was sharing a very intimate secret, something he had kept very carefully. I asked him why he had never shared this before, and he just shrugged, saying that it seemed like something he didn't know how to deal with at the time. I felt something new. Lucas wasn't just my cousin. He was someone trying to understand the world and himself, someone who needed guidance. My heart raced. I knew I was beginning to cross a line, but I couldn't help but notice the way he looked at me, soft, full of restlessness and reverence. From that revelation, the relationship between us changed. We started talking even more, and our closeness grew. Simple outings, like walks around the city or a visit to Lake Champlain, began to take on a new meaning. I noticed Lucas's gaze lingering on me, trying to hide it, but it was obvious. It was something that, in a way, I not only noticed, but also began to reciprocate. One night, while we were in the living room, he brought up the subject of his inexperience again, which made him feel out of touch with his peers. He seemed confused, but open to learning. It was at that moment that I decided that perhaps I could help him explore this aspect of life in a way that would be special to both of us. I realized that I was about to embark on something much bigger than I had expected. A journey that was not about places, but about feelings and perhaps about teaching Lucas how to take his first steps in a world that was new to him. From that conversation on, things began to flow naturally but intensely. Our bond took on a new dimension, a kind of complicity that united us more than just as cousins. Outings that had previously been just fun began to carry an almost tangible tension, something that only the two of us could perceive. One afternoon, while we were walking through central Vermont, we decided to go into a craft store. Lucas picked up a wooden heart-shaped keychain and showed it to me, saying with a shy smile, I think this should stay with you. It has your essence. I smiled and accepted, but that simple gesture seemed to carry more emotional weight than he could have imagined. That night, while we were in the kitchen helping my mother with dinner, our eyes met several times. There was something there, something blossoming between us that seemed inevitable. After my mother went to bed, we stayed in the living room talking. The conversation started out light, but it deepened as the night went on. I shared with him my own experiences and how, for me, the essentials in any relationship are emotional connection and trust. He listened to every word attentively, as if he were taking it all in. Then, with a courage that seemed to come out of nowhere, he took my hand and asked, "Do you think I could, create that connection with someone?" I looked him in the eye and smiled, feeling my heart beat faster. I answered sincerely, "Connection comes when you allow yourself to feel, Lucas. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's about what you give and what you get in return." Lucas was silent for a few moments, but his eyes revealed everything. It was as if he was trying to understand and, at the same time, ready to experience something new. Gradually, the conversations turned into learning moments for him, and I began to guide him subtly, explaining how the connection between two people is built. Each shared moment, each exchange of glances and words, seemed to bring us even closer together. I could see that he was learning quickly, but what surprised me most was how much I myself was evolving with it. I was becoming not only Lucas's mentor, but also someone who was rediscovering the subtleties of love and intimacy alongside him. We were exploring new terrain, but together, and I knew something significant was about to happen. The night that changed everything began simply, like any other. My mother had gone out to visit a friend and said she wouldn't be back until late. That left us alone in the house, the silence broken only by the soft sound of the rain that was beginning to fall outside. It was one of those typical Vermont nights, cold but with a romantic air that seemed to envelop everything. We were in the living room, sitting on the rug, with a bottle of wine that I had opened to warm us up. Lucas was more relaxed than usual, perhaps because of the intimacy we had built over the last few days. He shared how he always felt out of place among friends who had already lived through experiences that he didn't even know where to begin. "What always bothered me," he said, looking down at his wine glass, "is the feeling of not measuring up, like I was always behind in everything." That touched me deeply. I walked over, put my hand on his and said, "You're not late, Lucas. Everyone has their own rhythm, and what matters is living each moment with meaning. It's not about the quantity of experiences, but the intensity of them." He looked up at me, and in that moment, what had been in the air for days finally came to fruition. The silence that followed was filled with tension, not uncomfortable, but the kind that precedes something inevitable. My heart was racing, and before I knew it, our faces were inches apart. When our lips met, it was as if the world around us disappeared. It was something completely new to him, and to me, it felt different. The cautious way he touched me, as if he were exploring unfamiliar territory, was both sweet and intense. Gently, I held his hand and encouraged him to trust his own instincts. He looked at me as if he were learning something valuable, and little by little his confidence grew. Every touch, every gesture, was like a silent dance between us, where I showed the way, but also learned from his pure and unpretentious sincerity. I stood up, took his hand and led him to my room. The room was lit only by a soft lamp, which projected dancing shadows on the walls. The rain outside continued to fall, but now it seemed to compose the soundtrack of that moment. I lay down next to him and began to explain with words and gestures how every detail matters. I showed him that it was not just about the physical aspect, but about connection and surrender. Lucas was attentive to every detail, and I could feel how much he was absorbing it, not just as an experience, but as something deep and meaningful. When we finally crossed that line, it was in a way that felt more like a celebration than a transgression. Everything happened at a pace that respected his inexperience and the intensity of the moment. During the kiss, I could tell that Lucas was excited. I felt a large bulge between his shorts. He asked him to put his hands on his penis and massage it, and at the same time I bent down and started exploring that bulge. But when I felt the gel, I stopped and asked Lucas to lie down. I climbed on top and settled myself all the way down. At that moment, I saw my cousin roll his eyes. "Lucas, I know it's going to be hard, but try to control yourself, okay?" I started to move, but it didn't take long. Lucas let out a scream and I felt that heat flooding my space. I stood up and hugged him. "Lucas, now you're not inexperienced anymore." I could see in his eyes that this meant much more than he expected, and for me there was something special about being the person to guide him in this discovery. Later, while we were lying side by side, he turned to me and said, "Thank you for teaching me, for making me feel something so real." Those words echoed in my mind. What we shared was more than a physical moment. It was a genuine exchange of vulnerability and trust. I knew that this was a milestone in his life, and in some ways, in mine too. The last days of Lucas's vacation were filled with goodbyes, but also with reflection. He was different, more confident, more self-assured. It was as if the experience we shared had awakened something new in him, something he didn't even know he needed. For me, it was equally transformative. That time together was not just about teaching him, but about rediscovering the beauty of true connection, emotional surrender, and the impact of living authentic moments. On the last day before he left, we met in the garden of the house. The sun was beginning to set between the trees, creating a golden light that seemed perfect for a moment like that. He looked into my eyes, held my hand, and said, "Clara, you have no idea how much all of this has meant to me. I came here feeling lost, but you showed me a world I didn't even know existed." I smiled, trying to hide the longing that was already overwhelming me, and answered sincerely, "Lucas, you taught me a lot too. Never stop being that sincere and genuine person. That's what makes you unique." The hug we shared lasted a long time, almost as if we were trying to keep a piece of each other forever. When he boarded the bus, I felt my heart tighten, but at the same time I was grateful. We had experienced something that few people understand, but that for us was more than significant. After he left, I reflected on what it all represented. It wasn't just about what happened, but how it changed us. I knew he would move on with his life, just as I would move on with mine, but that summer in Vermont would always be a fond memory, something that only the two of us understood. And now I wonder, how many people have experienced something like this? How many times has love or connection come about unexpectedly, defying the norms and creating something that makes us question everything? It's strange, but sometimes it's in these unlikely moments that we find the most profound lessons about ourselves and what it means to love. So, did you like this adventure between the cousins? Then subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the next stories I'll bring here. And don't forget to leave your like to support the channel and allow me to bring more exciting stories to you. Go there and leave your comment. Like, what did you think of this experience? Until next time, my dear listener.